Hey everyone, BT here, and today David and I are going to be talking about a YouTube channel called Soft White Underbelly. It is the passion project of a gentleman by the name of Mark Laita, who is a brilliantly gifted photographer who started this channel many years ago, where he basically takes individuals who have been marginalized by society, sort of on the fringe, and humanizes them and allows them to tell their story. It's a fascinating look into what goes on in this world when most of us pay very little attention to it. I think you're going to really dig this conversation, so let's check this one out.
Successful people learn how to make their mind work for them. I'm David Nagel, and this is the Successful Mind Podcast.
And welcome to another Full Throttle Thursday here with David. How you doing today?
I'm great, man. How are you?
I'm great. It's a good day to be here.
It is.
It is. So today we are full throttling our way into the soft white underbelly of YouTube. And for those of you that are not quite familiar with what soft white underbelly is, it is a YouTube channel that is basically a series of stories around very interesting human people, many of which have survived certain traumas in their life. It is was created by a gentleman, a photographer actually, by the name of Mark Laita, and it's a huge YouTube channel. He's got over 1,000 videos uploaded onto his site, lots of content, lots of interesting stories, and beautiful photography. But the reason we wanted to talk about this today, and we're going to specifically talk about one video in particular of an inbred family from West Virginia that he interviewed multiple times on his channel, but David and I want to have a conversation a little bit about what this soft white underbelly is, some of the things that we're sure about, maybe not so sure about, and what we think overall about this content. So why don't we go ahead and start there?
Well, I came across this and a client sent me a link to this, I don't know, 4 months ago, something like that. And I didn't know anything about it. I had never seen it before, didn't even know it existed. And they asked me what I thought. And I went in and I was actually surprised. I was surprised how big this is. And I didn't know that it existed at all, but the amount, or I should say not the amount. The amount of people that this guy's actually interviewed, that are non-traditional individuals, I thought was astounding. And I got to say, I'm still on the fence with this site, whether I like it or I don't, because I think I've come to the decision that I think it's a good thing for the most part, even though, like we're looking up here at the screen, this specific video's got 29 million views at current count, and you look at it and you think to yourself, holy shit, 29 million views. But when you look at it, the question then becomes, people are watching this for like not good entertainment. Right. I mean, it really, I do think it definitely has a factor of, like, it's kind of astounding to look at it. Most people are not aware of the amount of individuals that are living very, very difficult lives. And he brings this to the surface. But one of the things that really grabbed me about this was the way so many of these individuals are actually living, and the idea that part of the reason that they're living that way is because people don't want to see it.
Right.
They just don't want to see it.
Pretend as if it's not even there.
That's right. In real life, they don't want to drive down the road that these people are living on. They don't want to be anywhere near them. But on the screen, they could look at it and eat their popcorn and laugh,
right?
You know, or would ridicule it or whatever, or be amazed by it. But the question comes out, like, what are you doing for it? Now, one of the things that I was impressed with was that, what's the guy's name that started this?
Mark Laita.
Mark,
yeah.
Thanks. He takes them to Walmart. Like, yes. He gets them clothes, he gets some food. I think he bought them some appliances forever. But yes, these people are living really, really rough lives. And I had very interesting experiences when I was young, traveling through different parts of the United States, where I saw some of this firsthand in my life. So I was very aware that there were people like this. Most of our clients and people that know me know that I've spent a pretty large amount of time with homeless people in the past, interviewing them, talking to them, really trying to get to understand some of the plights of human beings, in general. So for me, it's always been fascinating because I come from the place of how does a person get into a situation where they're living this way? What is actually causing this? I'm always looking for what can we do to lift people out of suffering, right? Because I am a firm believer that going hungry in this world is absolutely not necessary. Living in ghettos is not necessary. People living in this kind of a situation, regardless of the fact that there's obviously an inbreeding factor going on here, they don't have to live this way. And I'm also very knowledgeable about the fact that some people choose to live this way, right? Like if you sit here and you watch some of the videos on this channel, there's some people here that in their belief, they're making very conscious choices about the lives that they're living. There were I heard some of the pimps talk about that.
Sure.
Some of the sex workers talk about that. Some people were like, this is the life that I've chosen for myself. Well, I mean, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, no, I think that's interesting because there's a lot of people that probably heard that immediately and their ears kind of pricked up a little bit. And they're like, are you telling me that, this is a choice that I was sexually abused, or this was a choice that I got hooked on meth and now.
Well, I wasn't talking about that specifically. Okay. I was talking about some of the prostitutes that are on there that claim that this is the life that they've chosen. Yeah.
And I totally agree. Not to put words in your mouth either, but I think that I look at it and I'm fascinated by the stories. I am, and I'm not watching.
They are fascinating stories.
They're fascinating stories. I mean, I'm looking at, like I said, he's got over 1,150 videos on this particular channel. I'm looking at ex-drug dealers, crack addicts, transgender prostitutes, homeless, car thieves. I watched one on a hacker. I watched, of course, the Whittakers, which we'll talk about here a little bit further in. Just very interesting people, and the people who have been marginalized by society. They've been sort of pushed to the side. And the reality is that this does take place in our world. I live in a place where I don't see this every day. So if I want to go and see
this any day. Let's say that's true.
Yeah, that for sure.
We don't drive past this on the way to work. It's nowhere near our community, but this is on the outskirts of every major city somewhere,
Yeah, and we're in a progressive country where it should not be the case. Like, people should not have to be living in squalor like they are. But like you say, many of them are choosing this life. They could find a way to get off the street. They could find a way to get help. They could find a way to do whatever it takes to get out of it. But there's a lot of people who have maybe become comfortable in it. Maybe it's a pattern from when they grew up, or some sort of trauma that they never got helped, or and they just continue to move forward with it.
With the Whittakers, he actually talks about that when he first heard about them and he was going to go see them to meet them. Apparently, one of the neighbors of this family came out with a gun.
Right.
And were like, you need to leave these people alone. Right. So apparently there had been things that happened in the past in order for that to occur. But they protect each other to some degree. I think that I have met people that live in real abject poverty in Appalachia and stuff like that, where they defend the life that they live. And it's not, from the average individual looking at it, a person would say, I wouldn't want to live that life. There's no way. But what's interesting is that many people defend it. So on one hand, you say to yourself, well, we shouldn't have anybody living this way. On the other hand, it's probably become a multi-generational acceptance of this is the way our life is, and we defend it. And in order to do that, they have to make the way other people live wrong, which is probably what so many people do with this site.
Right.
And they make them wrong, right? So it's a catch-22 type of a situation.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think this might be a good time for us to play a clip. So we're going to have Brad roll this clip, and we're going to watch a little bit, and then we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about it. So this is the Whittakers.
Come on out.
Come here, Ray.
Ray, tell me about your family. So Ray.
Examples that God supplies our physical, financial needs through people. And there could be multiple things happening, but don't doubt that God has done it. You start praising Him that it's a done deal, and then you just stand there. You know, sometimes the Scripture...
How do I turn that off?
Reveals that you just have to stand. It says over in Ephesians chapter 6 that you take unto you the whole armor of God, having done all things you
How do I turn it? You know how to turn it down?
and there are times that you just have to take the helmet of salvation, the breastplate of righteousness, of the Spirit, the Word of God, and you just stand and you fight and you have to just stand there until you see a manifestation.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right, that's good, Brett. So, yeah, you kind of get a sense, and you gave me an assignment a few months ago. You were like, I want you to just watch this and just pay attention to your reaction to how you're feeling about this. Like, what is your initial feelings about it? And as I watched through it, I felt there was a bond between this family that was really, really strong. So it was a bond that united them. Yeah, there's a lot of things like looking at them. They look quite a bit different from other people. The way they live, the trash piled up. They all live in this sort of, old house and all these other sorts of things. But what I remembered thinking about it was that people are choosing. They're choosing this life. They're choosing to be there, and they're not hurting anyone. They're just there to just exist and live their life how they want to live. And I think that's one of the things that definitely stood out to me the most with them when you handed me that assignment.
I asked a handful of people to watch it, and I didn't say anything about it. I'm like, watch this and tell me what your first reaction is. And it was interesting because one of the things that I was coming from was I wonder what the average person, what is the reaction when they see this? Because obviously most people go their whole life, they don't see this. And I remember listening to Jordan Peterson talk on several different topics, and he talked about something called the disgust factor in human beings. And it's basically, it seems to be a genetic reaction that human beings have to certain things that probably leads to our survival. And so basically we have something in us that is repulsed by certain things. And in a healthy individual, you'd be repulsed by things that would be potentially harm to you, either psychological, emotional, physical, health-wise, whatever. And as I was watching this, I thought to myself, I wonder, first of all, what you're looking at is you're looking at human beings that obviously come from an ancestral family that are living really rough, really, really rough. And they're limited. They're limited intellectually. They're limited physically. They're limited verbally. Their understanding of things is limited. If you watch, they eventually get into who's related to who and how did they get that way, whose parents were whose, and you could see that the least amount of incest has the most intelligent part of the family, and then the deeper in that it goes, the worse it actually becomes. But as I was watching it, it occurred to me, like, this guy, and like, I don't know this guy Mark at all. I have no idea who he is. All I know is that what he's doing and what he is creating, and I get that he has a fascination with, kind of like the macabre around this. Many people do. It is very interesting. But is it that we so can't look at the worst of ourselves that we allow this to continue to happen? Because it's not just these people. Like I've said many times, if you go to major cities and you look at where's the ghettos, right? The people that live in the ghettos, how many generations have they lived there? What's going on? Why can't they get out? Why can't we help them? get out. And I've really come to the determination that the reason, like, we completely have the ability to eradicate that kind of living for almost everybody. It does not need to be as big as it is. But I also know that once you get in there, there's a mindset of those people to hang on to what it is they have. It's very fascinating. I mean, I would really suggest that people take a look at this and just ask yourself, and I'm not coming from any judgment, but how do you react when you see this? Do you feel like you want to go and help, or do you feel like, don't show me this? I don't want to see anything about this. I don't want to know anything about this. Get this the hell out of my life. Because truthfully, T, I had, like I said, a bunch of people look at this, and I got reactions across the board. One person was like, I don't need to see this. Don't ever send this to me again. And they didn't want to talk about what it called up in them, but they've made it very clear. Do not ask me to look at another one of these videos, right?
Yeah, they were firm in their no.
Yeah, I mean, it was very triggering for people.
Sure, and I could see how that could be an issue for a lot of people. I mean, for me as well. I mean, it was triggering of sorts because it triggered in me the gratitude that I have for what I have, and that I wouldn't want to live my life like this. And they are clearly choosing to live their life that way, and that's okay. That's their choice. It did trigger me of sorts that way, but it also triggered me in ways I wasn't expecting. Like I said, they seem like a really close-knit family. They seem like very together, and they live in a community where neighbors look out for them. You mentioned the shotgun. We'll link to the Walmart one in this particular episode as well, but there's a scene in there where they come across and they meet another part of the family.
A cousin or something, right? A cousin
there at the Walmart.
And it's a very, like, it's like a great thing. Like anybody, like any two family members meeting in the Walmart. Hey, what's happening? How you going?
And then they interview another gentleman who has happened to be at the Walmart as well, who's a neighbor of theirs who no longer lives up there. But they talk a little bit about, Freddie, and Freddie passes away, and they show Freddie's
now is Freddie's the one all the way to the right of the screen?
Yeah, I believe that's Freddie. And they actually in this video that we watched a bit ago, they do show you where Ray gets excited to take you to Freddie's grave, and they basically walk across the street over by another trailer house, and there's a plot. He's buried right there. He's buried right there in the yard, Freddie. And you can just see that there's some love there, even though Ray can't verbalize it. He loved Freddie, and he's very huggy. He hugs the guy in the Walmart.
Now, is Freddie a brother?
I believe so, yes.
Did the guy in the middle pass away recently also?
Oh, I'm not sure. I think they just interviewed them, and they all seemed fully intact.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, he does. So
somebody
Mark Laita
wasn't there in the last interview.
Okay.
Somebody, maybe it was the sister.
Maybe.
Well, somebody was, and they made note of it, but they didn't say where they didn't know where she was, which seemed weird. So they thought maybe she passed away. I think that's what it was.
Check in. It's not like he just goes and films these people and gets what he needs and then he goes. He's gone back. He's got definitely. Mark has a soft spot for the Whittakers because he does take them to Walmart. He does spend thousands of dollars. He helped them with their putting a new roof on their house. I think he helped them secure some money for a vehicle and things like that. Yeah. So he's giving. He
gained their trust.
He gained their trust. He really did. I mean, although it was precarious at the beginning with the shotgun and the neighbor and all those other sorts of things.
Yeah, for sure.
But if you look at the channel from an artistic standpoint, it really is taking the people who are marginalized or forgotten by society and bringing to light the struggles that they deal with on a day-to-day basis. And I can only assume, and maybe this is me just being naive, I can only assume that the soft white underbelly refers to what Churchill talked about Italy being the soft white underbelly. Italy was the soft white underbelly of Europe. It was the most vulnerable part. Yeah. So the soft white underbelly in our country is these fringe people, these people that are out there that are struggling from hand to mouth that we really should be addressing in some way, shape, or form. And I'm sure that the entire project that Mark is taking about on his own and being the disciple for this is to say, look, this is something we need to look at. We should not have a world where there is poverty we should not have a world where there's hunger. Like, you can choose poverty, that's fine, but nobody should go hungry. Right. But you're making that choice. So he's exposing that a little bit, but he's taking people that you normally wouldn't see and the thumbnails are intriguing, so you click through. That's what gets me on Soft White Underbelly. It speaks to, this one might be relatively interesting. Maybe I want to learn about a Skid Row heroin addict.
Right.
What is it like on Skid Row? He actually goes down, and there's videos of him going down into Skid Row, seeing the tent cities, interviewing these people. And like you said with you, interviewing individuals who are homeless. They're fascinating. They don't give two shits about what you think about it. They're amazing salespeople, and they're out there doing it, and they're making a fairly decent amount of money. You've spoken to some people.
Well, one of the things that I've always tried to that I have taught people from a resourceful aspect, and that always fascinated me, was that when you look at folks like this, and even completely homeless people, they're able to get what they need to survive. And what's interesting about that is that in and of itself requires a level of consciousness to be able to get what you need, and then to live in a situation, whether you consciously made a choice or not. Now, I never knew that there were people that were homeless that actually made a conscious choice to do that until I started interviewing them. And I did this when I was a teenager, right? I was shocked to realize that people were just like, I'm checking out. Like, I don't feel like a part of society. I don't really want anything to do with it. And, I don't want those responsibilities, or I want to play the game or whatever it is that they think is going on, but they've chosen to check out and do something different. And then you have other people that probably have no choice. Like, these people probably have no consciousness around the idea of where they are and how they're living. And they don't know anything else because they really don't go anywhere. And they don't really probably don't have the intellectual capacity to know the difference either. But you're talking about, these are adults. These are older adults too.
Totally.
And so somebody's helping taking care of these people, and if this guy, I will say this, because you were telling me about somebody who had an issue with the fact that he's probably making money off of this channel, which he probably is, but he seems to be putting the money back in to be helping some people.
Correct.
Right? So that's obvious that he's actually doing that.
Yeah. It's not pure exploitation.
It's not.
No. I mean, he's taking pictures, he's selling books, he's got this channel, 3.66 million views, or subscribers. 3.6 million. Yeah, 3.66 million.
So that means that there's a lot of people watching this on a regular basis.
A lot of people watching it on a regular basis. He puts out a ton of content. Like you said, he's been doing this.
That does concern me, though.
Yeah.
It does.
In what way?
Well, I mean, why are people watching this on a regular basis? I mean, if you're watching this as entertainment, that is not a good thing.
Right.
That is not a good thing. If you're watching it because you're trying to learn something or you want to be part of the solution, that's one thing. Otherwise, it's like an exploitive type porn off of the misery and suffering of others.
And that's what the article I was reading about with the woman who was interviewed on the channel, and she had some things to say about it wasn't the best experience for her. She referred to it as trauma porn. It's like basically people are attracted to that for some way, shape, or form, some reason.
Well, it's like the train accident thing, right?
Yeah, you
can't look away, right? So people are just, that's why this has 29 million views. Yes. I guarantee you it's not because 29 million people care about what's happening to this family. It's because it is so bizarre that they're looking at it and they can't look away.
Well, and this has been.
You got a guy that barks, right?
Ray. Ray is
like, he walks around, he shit his pants, and he barks at people all day long, right?
That's his communication for him, and totally. We've been doing this since the dawn of time. I mean, you go back to, and not to relate the Whittakers to, the oddities you see at the circus, like the bearded lady or the friggin' 8-foot tall gentleman, or
that's right.
It's very much. This has been going on forever and ever and ever.
Long time.
And people they're drawn to that for some reason. I don't make it a point to go on this channel every day. I do subscribe just to see if there's anything that's interesting. I don't necessarily take great joy in watching other people suffer.
Right.
When I first watched it, I thought that's immediately, I'm like, oh God, what does Nagel want me to watch here? Is this about? But when I watched it, it allowed me to look at it through a different lens, and allowed me to look at it from the standpoint where they're perfectly content. There's a contentment there that even the richest people in the world sometimes can't reach that level of contentment, right?
Yeah,
and it's interesting. I don't necessarily need all the things.
I think it's a contentment out of ignorance, though. Let's just say that's probably
true. There's
very
not an awareness with that. But I don't necessarily need all the things that I have, but I want them. And that's the big difference here. When I look at that, I'm like, I don't want that life. I want what I like.
Yeah.
But when I'm around people that are, let's use the homeless as an example. For many years, we would go out to Seattle for a weekend out of the year, watch my cousin do his symphony. He had him on the podcast.
We did that up till the COVID thing
Absolutely,
happened.
till COVID, yeah. So we would go out there, and we were alarmed at the last time we were out in Seattle, how that city has been overrun by the homeless. And it came to light during COVID that they were just allowing it to be just basically this demilitarized zone where anything could go on out there. And it's really soured my love for the city. And it's unfortunate because I don't want to use the word repulsed by that, but when I see people out there, you can't even get down the street without 7 or 8 people heckling you, asking you for money, calling you names, doing all these sorts of things. It's hard for me, and I don't like to be around that environment. And call it what you will, I don't want any part of that, but I can also see where I could learn something by my reactions, dig deep and say, why am I having this experience? Why am I triggered so much by what's happening out there on the street?
Yeah,
it's just really interesting.
It is rough.
I don't know, but I would encourage people to go out and come up with their own opinions for something like this. I think that Soft White Underbelly does, teach us a little something about who we are. And if people are watching it for pure entertainment, that's their prerogative. It's very, very interesting. It makes me wonder what else they're watching out there. But I do think that what the Soft White Underbelly is doing is it is showing a vulnerability here that we can all learn.
Yeah, I want to believe that this guy is doing this to bring awareness to these different problems. I mean, that's what I'm choosing to believe. I don't know the guy. I don't think he would be doing some of the things that he's doing if he was just purely exploitive about it. But I don't think that there's a whole lot of ways to bring the awareness without the exploitive nature of it, right? Because it's like that's one of the things about the internet. The internet's a platform for so much information, and it's a way to get a message out to people. Now, if there's people that are using it in an exploitive way, that's on them, really. But if there's people that look at this and go, something, there's something I can do about this. There's something that's something I can help. I can be a benefit to society, or I feel really pulled toward one person's story and they get involved and make a change. Then if one person's lives change, it makes a huge difference. Yeah.
He'd be an interesting get on like an interview.
He probably would.
I'd love for you two to get into a room because I think you could really get to the bottom of why he does what he does and just to learn a little bit about it, because I did do a little bit of research on Mark Laita, and he's done some podcasts and done some interviews here and there.
He started off as a photographer, from my understanding.
Yeah, totally. He's very, very powerful.
Yeah, I'd interview
and
him.
strong.
I'd interview him if he wanted to come on the show.
It'd be interesting to see what he had to say. But all that to say, I would definitely encourage people. We've linked a couple of these below for the Soft White Underbelly. Go check it out. I mean, if it's not for you, we totally
and let us know. Like leave comments. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you think of our opinion. Let us know what your opinion is. We'd be really interested. Like, I find this extraordinarily fascinating, what people think about these things. It just it's kind of the way my mind works. I'm always curious about what people think, regardless of the topic. So.
Yeah, and I'd also like to get a little bit more on that discuss factor piece you talked about with Jordan Peterson. Like, I think I want you to send me that link so I can kind of take a piece of what he talked about within that to see how it fits into my watching and how I felt.
Well,
about
it's interesting. Like, if you really get into it with Peterson, one of the things that he talked about when he brought it up was he linked it to Hitler, because of the atrocities that Hitler did there. And I think where he picked it up, where it was actually being used in a really nefarious way, was when he listened to Hitler's Table Talks, which was a series of books that were published around unedited conversations at Hitler's dinner table. And he gained a lot of information there, but the idea that Hitler had his disgust factor was very, very high. Right, he was like a clean freak, and then to view certain individuals as being dirty or not good, and look what it led to. Right, I mean, it led to one of the worst worst things in history. But that was where I heard Peterson talk about it for the first time. I've heard him mention it a couple of times, but I can get you some information on that.
Yeah, I think that would be really interesting because I'd like to be able to tie it into what we talked about today. So, just as a reminder for those of you that are watching or listening to this right now, in the month of July, we are going to be putting out one podcast a week. It's going to be on Mondays. It's going to be David doing an amazing lessons on leadership with CEO and my wife, Steph Tuss. I think it's going to be really good. I think people are really going to dive into that. So we will not be hitting your feed 3 times a week in the month of July. It'll be only that one time during the week, but we'll be back on our regular schedule in August. And I've got some exciting things coming your way, but definitely Lessons on Leadership is coming up, and we'll be back with Full Throttle Thursdays beginning in August. So I love having these conversations.
Same
these
bat
conversations are powerful for me because I get a chance to A, get inside your brain, and B, I get a chance to experience. I never would have found something like this had you not mentioned it, because you're constantly seeking new information. You're constantly learning from those around you, and you talk to a whole lot more people than I do. So you get recommendations, you pass them my way. Sometimes they're a thumbs up, sometimes they're a thumbs down, but you know what? At least I'm giving it an effort, and I think we did that with Soft White Underbelly. So this has been a great conversation.
I agree.
All right, everyone, Soft White Underbelly. Interesting conversation indeed. We'd encourage you to go click the links and watch some of these videos and make a decision on your own to see how you feel about this. You know, David talked a little bit about, is there exploitation involved in here? What's the point of all of this? I think that's in the eye of the beholder. You know, we'd like to learn more about what Mark Laita has in store with Soft White Underbelly. It's a huge channel, and it is pointing out what's going on in the world as far as, these marginalized people and their stories, and it humanizes them in a way, and hopefully you'll find that for yourself. So go ahead and leave us a comment. Let us know if you watched any of those, if some stood out, if there's any things that we talked about in this episode that stood out to you, let us know. Be sure to ring that bell and subscribe to this channel. We definitely want to continue to bring a lot of these Full Throttle Thursdays your way. It's just a great conversation. All right, until the next time, we'll see you on the next Successful Mind podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Successful Mind podcast. And if you like what you heard and you want to know more, go to davidnagel.com/free stuff.